Right. Now we're going to understand Spring. Very first point about Spring, not first point, actually few points are there, important points about Spring. What is Spring? Spring or Hibernate, whatever it is a framework, Java framework, open source framework. Okay. So what is its purpose? Why we use it? What is the intention of Spring framework? Hope you remember we discussed about uh, factory. What factory will do? Whatever object, which class object you want, it will create it for you based on the inputs you have given. Okay, so factory and majorly singleton, but this one singleton you can customize. Okay, so factory, singleton, and the purpose of Spring Framework is to develop enterprise applications with loosely coupled architecture. So this is Spring Framework. This is one of the advantage of Spring Frameworks.
Usually coupled architecture.
You maybe you are not presented on that day. Instead of coupling implementation classes, we use interfaces. Not only that, instead of instantiating what you want, you pass whatever you want as arguments. Okay, that is loosely coupled architecture. Once we entered there, I will show you what loosely coupling in code, in action. And here, one of the most powerful feature which helps us to achieve loosely coupled architecture is the dependency injection. Dependency injection. What is dependency and what is injecting the dependency? Every computer needs hard disk. Every computer needs RAM and processor. So these are all dependencies to a computer. Okay. So here, what, for example, I am using Lenovo ThinkPad. So ThinkPad, whatever brand it is, maybe you are using Asus, someone else using Apple, but these manufacturers, are they manufacturing hard disks, processors and RAMs? No, they don't create, they don't manufacture. Instead of their manufacturing, they are buying, or they are by some business associations, they are getting them the parts, the component, the important parts, they are getting from different manufacturers. So here, what exactly is it? It is injecting the dependency. Instead of they are creating, they are asking someone else. So here, in your application, in your software application, instead of you are creating, you can ask a Spring Framework what you want. So the Spring Framework will create the object for you, and it will inject where exactly you want and you told. These things we are going to see, we are going to observe these things in a short span of time. So open source framework, factory and singleton. Singleton, it is not necessary to be always, but this is default. Singleton is default. That is customizable. Okay, and enterprise applications can be developed with loosely coupled architecture. Tightly coupled architecture means, due to any purpose, if one component wanted to change, one component may be replaced by another component, you need to re-engineer the whole application. That is the drawback of tightly coupled architecture. If it is loosely coupled architecture, one component you can remove, you can place another component in that place, the application runs smoothly without having at least one line of change. That is the advantage with loosely coupled architecture. So dependencies. Instead of you are creating what you want, Spring will create what you want and will inject at the position or place, time you mentioned. So that is the advantage of dependency injection. So here dependency injection is achieved with the IOC container, inversion of control container. So what is the control? What kind of activities you are inverting from your head to someone else? Instantiation, creating dependencies. That job you inverted from your head to Spring Framework. Okay, here container. There are different kinds of containers are there in Spring Framework. So altogether we call them container. That's all. Okay. So one of the very famous one, regularly used one is application context. Application context is one container name. Okay. So let us say this is application context or container. Spring container. Okay, here you have defined couple of multiple classes in your program. For example, class A is one class and B is another class, C is another class. Okay, and you have informed Spring Framework that these three are Spring Beans. These three are what? Spring Beans. Okay, bean means already we saw bean. Bean means any simple Java class with private or default variables and public setter getter methods and necessary other validation methods. Okay, so you mentioned these are Spring Beans. Spring Beans means specially qualifying them with some special annotations, that is Spring annotations, Spring related annotations. Okay, and then you have a couple of more classes, maybe E is another class, F is another class. These are non-Spring Beans. What are they? These are normal classes. Normal, otherwise you can say normal beans. So as and when you mention these classes are Spring Beans, automatically these objects are created by Spring Container, means Spring Framework, and kept in the container. Means here an object of class A, new A, an object in the same way, new B. So these all Spring Beans were instantiated and kept in the container. So these objects, why Spring Framework created them, why Spring Framework instantiated them and kept the instances with him? Because you mentioned they are Spring Beans. Since you mentioned, Spring Framework created them. Since you did not mention E and F are Spring Beans, Spring Framework did not touch them. Okay, actually this is the concept behind the total every feature we are enjoying today with the Spring. Understand? This is the feature. Spring IOC container, inversion of control container of the Spring Framework is giving a wonderful feature, that is dependency injection. Okay, so this is about Spring. And in Spring there are so many modules. Just we saw IOC and its purpose is the dependency, and along with this web-based MVC, servlet manufacturing or servlet containment or servlet based development, it helps us to. Then data interaction again with so many protocols you have, JDBC template, Spring Data JPA, XML based persistency, and the other one is aspect oriented programming, aspect J and AOP, these two things, aspect oriented programming, that is another feature, another object oriented programming facility we got with Java, aspects, and automation. So many things are there, just on top of this IOC container. Okay, so let us see how we can use Spring Framework in our Java application. Okay, with simple examples. Okay.